Behind the Code, The Rise of Matt Mullenweg, and the Commercialization of Open Source. Disclaimer. This book is a personal exploration and critique of the WordPress ecosystem, its leadership, and the challenges that have emerged as the platform has grown. The views and opinions expressed in this book are entirely my own, based on my long-standing experience as a WordPress user and contributor. My intent is not to harm or defame any individual or entity, but rather to encourage open dialogue and thoughtful reflection on the future of WordPress and its role in the broader digital world. Any statements made in this book regarding Matt Mullenweg, Automattic, or other related companies are my personal opinions, informed by publicly available information, and should be viewed as such. While I have great respect for the contributions of all individuals and companies involved in the WordPress project, I believe it's important to critically examine the dynamics at play in order to maintain the open source principles that have made WordPress what it is today. This book is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by WordPress, Automattic, or any related entities. All trademarks, logos, and brand names are the property of their respective owners. Introduction. A turning point for the WordPress community. Since 2005, I've been a dedicated member of the WordPress community, contributing my time, energy, and expertise to the platform that has changed how we publish and manage content online. WordPress isn't just software. It's a movement rooted in the principles of open source collaboration, transparency, and inclusivity. But recently, something happened that shook my faith in the direction WordPress is headed. At WordCamp US this year, Matt Mullenweg, the co-founder of WordPress and CEO of Automattic, publicly name-shamed an individual in front of a crowd of hundreds of respectful attendees. Specifically, he put the managing director of Silver Lake Capital, an investment firm, on screen, complete with contact information, and urged people to leave WP Engine, a well-known and respected hosting provider. It didn't matter that WP Engine was one of the event's sponsors or that their employees were sitting in the audience. People got up and left, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. This moment deeply troubled me. Conferences like WordCamp US should be about community, collaboration, and growth, not about singling out companies or individuals in front of a live audience. The stage Matt chose for this confrontation was inappropriate, and it exposed something I've long feared. WordPress leadership is drifting away from the open, community-driven values that have made it successful. It didn't stop there. Shortly after the conference, Matt made another bold move. WP Engine is banned from WordPress.org. They shut off access to the WordPress plugin directory for WP Engine users. This affected millions of websites, many of whose owners likely had no idea this battle between Automattic and WP Engine was even happening. Innocent users were caught in the crossfire of a feud they had nothing to do with. To me, that's unacceptable. WordPress is built on the backs of its users, contributors, and the broader community. To hurt millions of websites over a disagreement with a hosting provider seems not only unnecessary but also damaging to the integrity of the WordPress ecosystem. This book was born out of these events. I don't believe it's right to leverage the power of WordPress to settle personal or business disputes in such a public way. There's a time and place for these conversations, but not at the expense of the community that relies on this platform. As someone who believes in the core values of open source, I feel it's important to challenge these decisions, to hold leadership accountable, and to encourage reflection on what kind of future we want for WordPress. I've long admired what WordPress has achieved, but it's time to take a closer look at where things are heading. This book is my attempt to do just that. It's not about personal attacks. It's about raising the difficult questions that need to be asked when corporate interests collide with open source ideals. Let's start the conversation. Chapter 1, Early Automattic Formation and WordPress.com, 2005. In 2005, I was just stepping into the world of web development, and like many others, I was both eager and terrified of building something that people could actually use. The idea of rolling my own user management system was beyond intimidating. It was downright terrifying. So when I found WordPress, a platform that came with a built-in login system, I was hooked. That tiny feature alone blew my mind. At the same time, Matt Mullenweg made a pivotal decision that would reshape the WordPress ecosystem. He founded Automattic, a for-profit company that would become a dominant force within the community. Automattic's first major product was WordPress.com, a hosted version of WordPress aimed at simplifying website creation by removing the complexities of hosting and maintenance. While this move aligned with the mission to democratize publishing, it also introduced conflicts of interest that, in my view, have influenced the dynamics of the ecosystem ever since. The birth of Automattic. Mullenweg's decision to create Automattic came at a critical juncture. WordPress was gaining popularity, but many users found the process of setting up and managing their own installations daunting. WordPress.com addressed this barrier by offering a hosted solution where users could create and manage sites without worrying about technical details. This innovation undoubtedly expanded WordPress's reach, attracting a broader audience. However, it also marked the beginning of a complex relationship between the open-source project, WordPress.org, and the commercial enterprise, Automattic. Conflicts of interest. As the leader of both WordPress.org and Automattic, Mullenweg assumed dual roles that, to me, presented inherent conflicts of interest. Automattic benefited directly from the open-source community's contributions, while simultaneously competing with other businesses in the WordPress space. Automattic's products, such as WordPress.com, Jetpack, and Akismet, often had advantages due to their close integration with WordPress core. This raised concerns about whether Automattic was leveraging its influence to gain an unfair edge over competitors, potentially stifling innovation and competition within the ecosystem. Perceptions of unfair advantage. From my perspective, Automattic's privileged position allowed it to shape the direction of WordPress in ways that aligned with its commercial interests. For example, features developed for WordPress.com could influence the development priorities of WordPress core, potentially sidelining other community-driven initiatives. Additionally, the marketing of WordPress.com as simply WordPress blurred the lines between the open-source project and the commercial service. This confusion could lead users to choose Automattic's offerings without fully understanding the alternatives, further consolidating the company's market position. Impact on the ecosystem. The formation of Automattic and its growing influence raised important questions about the balance of power within the WordPress community. Independent developers and businesses might find it challenging to compete with a company so closely tied to the platform's leadership. This situation led me to question whether WordPress could remain a truly open and community-driven project if one company held significant sway over its direction. The potential for conflicts of interest seemed to threaten the diversity and collaborative spirit that had been central to WordPress's success. Mullenweg's defense and community response. Matt Mullenweg has often defended his dual roles by emphasizing that Automattic's success contributes to the overall growth and sustainability of WordPress. He argues that providing accessible solutions like WordPress.com aligns with the mission to democratize publishing. While there's merit to this perspective, I believe it's crucial to recognize and address the concerns about fairness and transparency. Open dialogue within the community about these issues is essential to ensure that all contributors feel valued and that the ecosystem remains vibrant and diverse. The establishment of Automattic in 2005 marked a significant turning point for WordPress. While it led to innovations that expanded the platform's reach, it also introduced complexities related to corporate influence and conflicts of interest. As WordPress continues to evolve, I think it's important to reflect on how these dynamics affect the community. Balancing commercial success with open-source values requires careful consideration and ongoing commitment to transparency and inclusivity. By acknowledging and addressing these challenges, the WordPress community can strive to maintain the principles that have made it a powerful force in the world of web publishing, ensuring that it remains a platform that empowers users and fosters innovation. Chapter 2. Selling Links in WordPress Themes. 2005. In 2005, the WordPress community was shaken by a revelation that struck at the core of the open-source project's principles. WordPress, a platform built on openness and community collaboration, found itself embroiled in controversy when its founder, Matt Mullenweg, made a decision that clearly prioritized financial gain over transparency and trust. A young Mullenweg accepted money to include sponsored links in WordPress releases. These links were designed to manipulate search engine rankings, an SEO tactic considered unethical even at the time. While he claimed it was a mistake born of youth and inexperience, this was just the beginning of a pattern that has continued to shape WordPress's evolution. It was a pivotal moment, one where money took precedence over community values, and it set the stage for many of the conflicts that would follow. The inclusion of sponsored links. The inclusion of these hidden links in WordPress was not merely an oversight, it was a calculated business decision. Mullenweg admitted to accepting payment for these links, which were embedded in WordPress themes in a way that users couldn't see them. However, search engines could. This practice, commonly referred to as link farming, was aimed at boosting the search engine rankings of unrelated websites, some with topics as obscure as diseases. This decision wasn't just a minor blunder. It was a clear example of how early financial pressures influenced Mullenweg's choices. He was a young entrepreneur, fresh in the open source world, and this presented an opportunity to capitalize on the growing popularity of WordPress. But in doing so, he sacrificed trust for profit. The ramifications were swift. Google delisted WordPress from its search results, a move that not only hurt the platform, but also sent a clear message about the importance of adhering to ethical standards. When the hidden links were discovered by the community, it wasn't just a violation of SEO rules. It was a betrayal of the trust that had been built within the WordPress ecosystem. A growing pattern of profit-driven decisions. In hindsight, this incident seems to mark the beginning of a pattern in Mullenweg's leadership. It was the first major instance where financial opportunity took priority over the ideals of the community. Even as WordPress continued to grow, similar decisions would follow, ones that seemed to benefit Automattic, Mullenweg's for-profit company, over the broader WordPress ecosystem. Looking at the events of 2005 in the broader context of WordPress's history, it becomes clear that the pattern wasn't isolated. From the creation of WordPress.com, which blurred the lines between the open-source WordPress.org and Automattic's commercial interests, to the introduction of tools like Jetpack and Akismet that leaned heavily into the ecosystem for competitive advantage, the community saw the steady growth of corporate influence. While Mullenweg has often framed these decisions as necessary for the growth and sustainability of WordPress, many in the community, myself included, have questioned whether they were driven more by financial interests than by what was best for the open source project. Community reaction and trust issues. When the sponsored links incident first came to light, the reaction from the WordPress community was visceral. Many users felt exploited. Here was a project they had invested their time and energy into, only to find that hidden deals had been made behind their backs. Deals that directly contradicted the openness and collaboration that WordPress stood for. The anger was not just about the SEO ramifications, though many worried about the effect on their own sites. It was about the integrity of the platform itself. Could WordPress be trusted to remain open source and community-driven if its leadership was willing to sell off pieces of it for quick cash? Personally, this incident made me more wary of how leadership was steering WordPress. I had chosen WordPress because of its community values, but this move felt more corporate than collaborative. It planted seeds of doubt about whether the open source project could resist the creeping influence of profit-driven decisions, response, and corrective measures. To Mullenweg's credit, he quickly removed the sponsored links and issued a public apology. But the damage was done, and the incident left a lasting scar on the relationship between the leadership and the community. In response to the controversy, WordPress tightened its guidelines for theme and plugin submissions, placing a stronger emphasis on transparency and ethical conduct. Developers were now required to disclose sponsored content, and the theme review team became more vigilant. However, this corrective action did little to address the underlying issue, a leader who seemed willing to bend the rules when financial opportunity presented itself. It raised questions about whether similar decisions would be made in the future and how that would impact the trust and transparency within the community. Lessons learned. For me, this episode served as a wake-up call about the nature of leadership within WordPress. It revealed that even within an open-source project, financial pressures could easily overshadow community values. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's difficult to rebuild. The sponsored links controversy also highlighted the challenges of managing a large, decentralized ecosystem. With contributions coming from all corners, ensuring adherence to shared standards and ethical guidelines required more than just reactionary fixes. It required leadership committed to those values from the start. Reflections on leadership and responsibility. Though Mullenweg was young when this incident occurred, it is hard to ignore the pattern that has since emerged. From selling links in 2005 to the dominance of Automattic's products today, it seems that financial motivations have frequently taken precedence over community interests. While WordPress has grown into an undeniable success, these early decisions set the tone for the balancing act between profit and principle that continues to play out. The 2005 sponsored links incident wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was a glimpse into the way financial pressures would shape the evolution of WordPress. It forced the community to grapple with difficult questions about leadership, trust, and the future of the platform. And while corrective measures were put in place, the shadow of that decision lingers, reminding us all of the delicate balance between community and commerce. Chapter 3. The Thesis Theme GPL Controversy, 2010. By 2010, WordPress had firmly established itself as a leading platform for web publishing, but not without tension between the open source community and those looking to build businesses around it. One of the most high-profile and contentious disputes in WordPress history came to a head in 2010 between Matt Mullenweg, co-founder of WordPress, and Chris Pearson, creator of the widely used premium theme, Thesis. The heart of the conflict was over licensing, specifically Pearson's decision not to license Thesis under the GNU General Public License, GPL, which governs WordPress itself. On the surface, this was a battle over legal interpretations of software licenses, but for many in the community, myself included, it also felt like yet another example of Mullenweg using his leadership role to assert control over the ecosystem. While it's true that the GPL plays a central role in WordPress's success, this controversy raised uncomfortable questions about power dynamics, selective enforcement, and the intersection of open source philosophy with commercial interests. The GPL and WordPress. To understand this conflict, it's important to grasp the significance of the GPL within the WordPress community. The GPL is an open-source software license that requires derivative works to adopt the same license. In WordPress's case, any theme or plugin that relies on WordPress's core code is expected to comply with the GPL. This ensures that users and developers can freely use, modify, and redistribute not just WordPress, but any work built upon it. Mullenweg has always been a staunch advocate for the GPL, seeing it as more than just a license. It's a philosophical commitment to freedom and collaboration, the very principles WordPress was founded on. He has consistently emphasized that adhering to the GPL is essential to maintaining the integrity and openness of the platform. However, beneath this philosophical commitment, one could argue that it also served as a way to consolidate control over the ecosystem, ensuring that any developer operating within the WordPress space played by the same rules largely enforced by Mullenweg and his leadership team. Chris Pearson and the rise of Thesis. By 2010, Pearson's Thesis theme had risen to prominence as one of the most popular premium themes for WordPress, beloved for its robust customization options and SEO-friendly design. Pearson, however, made a calculated decision not to license Thesis under the GPL, arguing that his theme wasn't a derivative work of WordPress and thus wasn't subject to the same licensing restrictions. Instead, Pearson sold Thesis under a proprietary license, which allowed him to maintain control over the code and charge for its use in ways that the GPL wouldn't have permitted. Pearson's decision put him on a direct collision course with Mullenweg, who saw any theme built on top of WordPress as inherently a derivative work that needed to comply with the GPL. But for Pearson, this wasn't just about licensing. It was about the right to run a business on his own terms without being dictated to by WordPress leadership. The public clash. The brewing tensions culminated in a highly public confrontation during a live debate on the Mixergy podcast in July 2010. During the debate, Mullenweg accused Pearson of violating the GPL by not licensing Thesis accordingly, framing it as a betrayal of the open-source principles that underpin WordPress. Mullenweg argued that anyone building on WordPress has a responsibility to adhere to its licensing terms, claiming that compliance was essential for the health and sustainability of the WordPress ecosystem. Pearson, however, fired back, asserting that Thesis was his intellectual property and that he should have the freedom to license it however he saw fit. He viewed the GPL as overreaching and its enforcement in his case as an attempt by Mullenweg to exert control over independent developers. The debate was intense, exposing deep philosophical differences over open-source licensing, but also hinting at something more. The power dynamics between WordPress leadership and third-party developers. Legal actions and community reactions. Following the public spat, Mullenweg hinted at the possibility of legal action if Pearson didn't bring Thesis into GPL compliance. This was a significant escalation, signaling just how far Mullenweg was willing to go to enforce compliance. For many in the WordPress community, this was a sobering moment. Legal threats are rarely employed in open source communities, where disputes are typically resolved through consensus and dialogue. Mullenweg's aggressive stance showed just how seriously he took this issue, but it also raised concerns about whether enforcement was selective. Why Pearson? Why Thesis? While Pearson's high-profile refusal to comply with the GPL drew the ire of WordPress leadership, many other developers were operating similarly without facing the same level of scrutiny. This selective enforcement left me questioning whether the battle with Thesis was truly about upholding open-source principles, or whether it was a calculated move to set a precedent, showing others in the ecosystem who was in charge. Implications for the WordPress community. For many in the WordPress community, the Thesis theme controversy was more than just a licensing dispute. It was a wake-up call. It underscored the growing tension between WordPress's open-source roots and the commercial interests of those building businesses around it. It also highlighted the power that WordPress leadership wielded over the ecosystem, particularly when it came to defining and enforcing rules. From my perspective, the GPL was, and still is, vital to preserving the open-source nature of WordPress. But the way this conflict unfolded felt heavy-handed, as though it wasn't just about maintaining the GPL, but about asserting control over anyone who built on top of WordPress. The fact that Pearson was singled out, while others were left unchallenged, only reinforced the idea that this was more about setting an example than enforcing a universal standard. Reflections on control and influence. The aggressive tactics employed during the Thesis controversy raised important questions about how power is distributed within the WordPress community. While Mullenweg framed his actions as necessary to preserve the integrity of the GPL, the selective enforcement of the rules made it hard not to see this as a move to consolidate control over the ecosystem. It's true that compliance with the GPL ensures that WordPress remains open and collaborative, but the fact that Pearson, a high-profile developer with a successful product, was targeted made it clear that leadership wasn't afraid to use its influence to shape the ecosystem. It left many of us wondering how much of this conflict was about licensing and how much was about sending a message to the rest of the community. The Thesis theme controversy remains one of the defining moments in WordPress's history. It revealed the complexities of open-source licensing, but also exposed the power dynamics that can arise within a decentralized, community-driven project. As WordPress continues to evolve, the lessons from this controversy remind us that the balance between open-source principles and commercial interests will always be delicate, and that those in positions of power will continue to shape that balance for better or for worse. Chapter 4. Plugin Sustainability and the Balance of Power in the WordPress Ecosystem. The WordPress ecosystem, with its vast array of themes and plugins, has always thrived on the contributions of independent developers. Plugins like W3 Total Cache, developed by Frederick Towns, are indispensable tools that improve site performance through advanced caching mechanisms. Yet the growing complexity of the platform, combined with the increasing demands on plugin maintenance, has raised important questions about sustainability, independence, and the balance of power within the WordPress ecosystem. The importance of W3 Total Cache. W3 Total Cache is one of the most popular caching plugins in the WordPress repository, used by millions of site owners to improve website speed and performance. For high-traffic and media-heavy sites, caching plugins like W3 Total Cache make a noticeable difference by implementing techniques such as page caching, browser caching, and object caching. This, in turn, enhances the user experience and SEO rankings. However, as WordPress evolved, maintaining a complex plugin like W3 Total Cache became an increasingly challenging task. The plugin needed frequent updates to remain compatible with new WordPress versions and web technologies. For independent developers like Frederick Towns, who initially developed and maintained the plugin largely on his own, the burden of keeping it functional and up-to-date grew over time. This broader issue of plugin maintenance and sustainability extends beyond just W3 Total Cache to affect many independent developers in the ecosystem. The challenge of plugin sustainability. Sustaining a widely used plugin is no small feat. The evolving nature of WordPress, the need for frequent security updates, and the growing demand for new features put immense pressure on plugin developers. Some independent developers have chosen to sell or partner with larger companies to keep their projects viable, while others have adopted a freemium model, offering premium features as a way to generate revenue. This is where Automattic, the company founded by Matt Mullenweg, plays a significant role. Automattic has acquired several major plugins and services, such as WooCommerce 2015 and Akismet, which Mullenweg co-founded in 2005. These acquisitions, while beneficial for sustainability, also raise important questions about how much influence a single company should have over critical components of the WordPress ecosystem. Automattic's role in the ecosystem. Automattic's resources have enabled it to take over the development and maintenance of key plugins, ensuring their long-term viability. For example, WooCommerce, the dominant e-commerce solution for WordPress, benefited significantly from Automattic's backing, with more frequent updates and new features being introduced. Similarly, Akismet, the anti-spam plugin, continues to play a crucial role in protecting WordPress sites from unwanted content. However, Automattic's acquisitions also sparked discussions about the centralization of power within the WordPress ecosystem. As Automattic acquires more key services, some community members have expressed concerns that this consolidation might overshadow independent developers and their contributions. The WordPress ecosystem has always thrived on its open source, decentralized nature, and maintaining this balance is critical to fostering innovation. Balancing independence and consolidation. The challenge of balancing independence with sustainability is not new to open source communities. In WordPress, this tension has become more pronounced as the platform grows and as the stakes for plugin developers get higher. Independent developers play a critical role in keeping the WordPress ecosystem diverse, bringing fresh ideas and unique innovations to the platform. At the same time, larger companies like Automattic have the resources to ensure that widely used plugins remain secure and updated. One potential path forward is fostering more collaboration within the community. Instead of relying solely on acquisitions to sustain important plugins, a collaborative model where multiple developers contribute to the maintenance and development of the key plugins could help spread the workload without centralizing control. The WordPress community has long been built on contributions, and finding ways to share responsibility while keeping projects independent could help preserve the open source spirit. The role of freemium and open source models. Many successful WordPress plugins have adopted a freemium model, offering a free core plugin with premium features available for purchase. This approach helps developers monetize their work while still contributing to the open source community. For example, W3 Total Cache offers advanced features for paid users such as fragment caching and enhanced CDN integration, allowing the core plugin to remain free while sustaining the developer's efforts. The WordPress community continues to support a wide range of business models, from freemium to donation-based development. The key is ensuring that these models support a diverse ecosystem of developers without prioritizing large companies over independent contributors. Transparency around these models, as well as clear guidelines for maintaining open-source projects, will be critical as the platform continues to grow. Reflections on the future of the WordPress ecosystem. The broader issue facing the WordPress community is how to maintain a healthy, dynamic ecosystem that balances both sustainability and independence. As WordPress continues to grow and evolve, it is essential that no single company or entity exerts disproportionate control over the platform. Independent developers need space to innovate and compete, while larger companies like Automattic play a valuable role in ensuring that key components remain secure and functional. The strength of the WordPress ecosystem lies in its diversity. Thousands of developers, agencies, and users contribute to the project's success. Ensuring that this diversity remains intact while also supporting sustainable business models is crucial to WordPress's continued growth. By promoting collaboration, transparency, and inclusivity, the community can strike the right balance between supporting essential tools and maintaining the open source principles that have defined WordPress since its inception. Chapter 5, 5 for the Future, Altruism or Corporate Overreach. In 2014, Matt Mullenweg introduced 5 for the Future, an initiative aimed at ensuring the long-term sustainability of WordPress. The initiative encouraged companies to contribute 5% of their resources, whether time, money, or talent to the open source platform. On the surface, this was a noble and forward-thinking strategy. Businesses benefiting from WordPress would, in turn, invest in its future, helping to secure the platform's continuous growth and success. However, as the initiative evolved, I began to question whether it truly served the best interests of the community or if it created an environment that disproportionately benefited larger corporations, such as Automattic. The birth of Five for the Future. Five for the Future was unveiled during Matt Mullenweg's keynote at WordCamp San Francisco in 2014. The goal was to mobilize resources from businesses that relied on WordPress by asking them to allocate 5% of their time, talent, or financial resources to help improve and maintain the platform. This approach aligned well with the open source ethos of collective responsibility and seemed to be a logical way for businesses to support the very foundation of their success. Initially, the initiative appeared to be a perfect fit for the WordPress community. However, as I observed its implementation over time, it became clear that it posed different challenges depending on the size and resources of the contributors. For large corporations, like Automattic, contributing 5% of their resources was feasible without disrupting their operations. In contrast, for smaller businesses and independent developers, setting aside 5% of their limited resources could prove to be a significant strain. Unequal burdens and power dynamics. For many small agencies and developers, contributing 5% of their resources presented a real challenge. While there was often a genuine desire to give back to WordPress, the practicalities of running a lean operation made it difficult to allocate the necessary resources. In contrast, larger companies like Automattic could contribute more easily, often enhancing their reputation in the process. This dynamic led me to wonder whether the initiative was inadvertently favoring larger corporations by enabling them to exert more influence over the platform's direction. While Five for the Future had the positive goal of sustaining WordPress, it also raised questions for me about the balance of power. As larger entities contributed more substantial resources, their priorities seemed more likely to shape the direction of WordPress development. This situation made me question whether smaller contributors, despite their passion and effort, might be overshadowed by the sheer scale of larger companies' contributions. A shift towards centralization? As I followed the progress of Five for the Future, I noticed what felt like a shift in decision-making within the WordPress project. The significant contributions from companies like Automattic inevitably carried weight, and it seemed that their priorities had the potential to steer development decisions. While this influence was likely unintentional, it led me to wonder whether WordPress was at risk of moving away from its community-driven roots toward a model where larger corporate interests held more sway. While the initiative encouraged contributions across the board, it raised concerns for me about the potential for power centralization within the ecosystem. As more significant contributors became prominent, there was a real risk that smaller voices could be marginalized. The WP Engine callout, Five for the Future as the hammer. And this dynamic was on full display in September 2024 when Matt Mullenweg publicly called out WP Engine for failing to meet the expectations of the Five for the Future initiative. During a public statement, Mullenweg specifically invoked the initiative as a key reason for criticizing WP Engine, pointing to their lack of contribution to the broader WordPress project. This incident demonstrated how Five for the Future could be used as a measure of accountability, but it also raised new concerns about the pressure it placed on companies, particularly larger ones, to meet these expectations. While some viewed Mullenweg's callout as a necessary push to hold major WordPress-dependent companies accountable, others saw it as a sign of the growing authority the initiative gave to larger entities like Automattic. It emphasized the tension between sustainability and independence within the WordPress ecosystem, where the initiative's original spirit of altruism could be seen as morphing into a standard that, when unmet, led to public reprimand. Balancing altruism and influence. Five for the Future highlights a fundamental challenge within open source communities: how to balance the benefits of significant contributions with the need to maintain a diverse and inclusive contributor base. Large contributions undeniably drive progress, but they can also create dependencies and shift the power balance. This isn't unique to WordPress, it's a challenge faced by many open source projects. Contributions come in many forms, whether through code, financial support, community engagement, or education, and all types should be valued equally. By fostering a culture that respects contributions of all sizes and types, WordPress can continue to thrive without becoming over-reliant on any one entity or group. Automattic's role, leadership or dominance. Matt Mullenweg's dual role as the CEO of Automattic and a leader within the WordPress community adds complexity to this issue. His leadership has been instrumental in WordPress's growth, but it also raises questions about where corporate interests and community governance intersect. Automattic's contributions under Survive for the Future are commendable, but they also prompt reflection about the company's influence over the platform. As Automattic grows its involvement, it's worth asking how much of WordPress's development aligns with its business objectives and how much remains truly community-driven. This is not to say that Automattic is acting inappropriately, but the concentration of influence within one company is something I believe the community should remain vigilant about. Reflecting on the path forward, the concerns raised by Five for the Future lead me to believe that WordPress would benefit from a more nuanced approach to sustaining its growth. While encouraging contributions is essential, we must also ensure that smaller players are not unintentionally marginalized and that influence remains balanced across the community. One potential solution could be to amplify the contributions of smaller entities and individuals through mechanisms that give equal recognition to different types of participation. By valuing all forms of involvement, whether large or small, we can maintain an open and inclusive ecosystem that honors WordPress's open source principles. Five for the Future represents both the promise and the challenges of sustaining an open source project through corporate and community contributions. As the initiative continues, it is essential to reflect on how it affects the community dynamics, ensuring that WordPress remains diverse, inclusive, and driven by its global contributor base. The future success of the platform depends on maintaining this balance. Chapter 6. The Intersection of Open Source and Business Interests. A closer look at Jetpack. Between 2014 and 2018, Jetpack, the all-in-one plugin developed by Automattic, became a focal point for debates about the tension between open source principles and corporate interests within the WordPress ecosystem. Initially launched in 2011 to bring WordPress.com features to self-hosted sites, Jetpack has since grown into a comprehensive suite offering tools for security, SEO, marketing, and performance enhancements. While Jetpack undeniably provides value, its evolution made me question how open source contributions are being leveraged by Automattic and whether business objectives are influencing decisions in ways that may not fully align with the broader community's interests. At the center of this tension is Matt Mullenweg's dual role as both a leader in the open source world and the head of a private, for-profit enterprise. This duality prompts me to ask how we balance community-driven ideals with business strategy, particularly when the lines between the two appear increasingly blurred. Jetpack's evolution from community to commerce. Jetpack's initial appeal was clear: bring powerful WordPress.com features to self-hosted sites. Tools like automatic backups, a content delivery network, CDN, and site statistics provided convenience, bundling multiple services that would otherwise require separate plugins or third-party providers. As Jetpack expanded, it introduced additional features like security scanning, uptime monitoring, and marketing utilities, transforming into an all-in-one solution for website management. However, with its growth came concerns about its increasingly commercial nature. Jetpack began integrating premium features alongside its free offerings, providing paid tiers for advanced tools like video hosting and real-time backups. As of September 2024, Jetpack's premium plan now costs $599 a year. While paid upgrades in open-source projects aren't inherently problematic, Jetpack's deep integration into the WordPress dashboard raised questions about whether Automattic was leveraging its influence to promote Jetpack over competing third-party plugins. As Jetpack became more prominent, I felt it was positioned as the default choice, overshadowing independent alternatives. The growing dominance of Jetpack, backed by Automattic's resources, raised important questions for me about decision-making within the WordPress ecosystem. Was Automattic using its position to subtly push users toward its paid services? Or was Jetpack simply responding to user demand for more bundled functionality? These concerns bring to the forefront a larger conversation about the intersection of business interests and community-driven development. Mullenweg's dual role, leadership and business. Matt Mullenweg's dual role as both a leader in the open-source WordPress community and CEO of Automattic places him in a delicate balancing act. On one hand, WordPress thrives on collaboration, transparency, and shared ownership. On the other hand, Automattic is a business that must generate revenue to sustain itself. Jetpack sits squarely at the intersection of these two roles. As a product of Automattic, it generates significant revenue through its premium services. This raises concerns about the degree to which business objectives influence its development. While Automattic contributes heavily to WordPress's ongoing development, the monetization of core functionalities like security and site optimization creates a complicated dynamic. I've questioned whether Jetpack's promotion within the WordPress dashboard is influenced by Automattic's desire to monetize these services rather than by purely community-driven considerations. While there is no direct evidence of unethical behavior, the perception of a conflict of interest persists, particularly among developers who feel that smaller, independent plugins are being crowded out by Jetpack's dominant presence. Community concerns. A monopoly in the making? As Jetpack grew, so did concerns about its impact on the broader plugin ecosystem. The prominence of Jetpack, developed and maintained by the same company that controls key aspects of WordPress, raised fears of monopolization. Independent developers voiced worries that Jetpack's ubiquity made it harder for smaller plugins to gain visibility, potentially stifling competition and innovation. One of the core tenets of open source development is the freedom to choose from a diverse range of tools and solutions. By bundling so many functionalities into one product, Jetpack risks reducing user choice. Critics argue that users new to WordPress may be funneled toward Jetpack due to its prominent placement in the dashboard, limiting the visibility of independent alternatives. For many, Jetpack represents convenience and trust. As a plugin backed by Automattic, it has the resources and infrastructure to provide reliable, regularly updated features. For many users, especially those less familiar with managing multiple plugins, Jetpack's all-in-one nature is a significant advantage. Balancing business and community values. The conversation surrounding Jetpack exemplifies the broader challenge of balancing business objectives with open-source principles. For Automattic, Jetpack is both a tool that benefits the WordPress community and a revenue stream that supports the company's growth. But as Automattic's influence grows, the need for transparency and accountability becomes even more critical. The concern isn't that businesses can't participate in open-source projects. Many successful companies build their models around open-source platforms. Instead, the challenge lies in ensuring that business interests don't overshadow the community's values. The WordPress ecosystem thrives on the contributions of independent developers, users, and businesses. To ensure the platform remains dynamic and diverse, it's essential that no single entity, even one as integral as Automattic, exerts too much control over the project's direction. Moving forward, transparency and inclusion. As the WordPress ecosystem continues to evolve, the relationship between Automattic and the broader community requires careful navigation. Jetpack's prominence highlights the importance of making decisions with the community's best interests at heart, rather than being driven solely by commercial considerations. For Automattic, greater transparency around how decisions are made regarding Jetpack and its integration into WordPress is essential. Open-source projects thrive on collaboration, and ensuring that community members feel heard and valued is crucial for maintaining trust. Moreover, fostering a vibrant ecosystem where independent developers can compete and thrive is vital. The WordPress plugin repository should continue to support diversity in development, offering users a wide range of choices without overwhelming them with a single dominant option. The future of WordPress, bridging open source and commerce. Jetpack's journey serves as a case study in the complexities of balancing open source values with business objectives. As WordPress continues to grow, maintaining a healthy balance between community-driven development and business realities will remain an ongoing challenge. For Automattic, this means not only leading the platform forward, but doing so in a way that respects the contributions of the broader community. By fostering transparency, encouraging diversity, and committing to open source principles, Automattic can navigate the intersection of business and open source in a way that benefits both the company and the WordPress ecosystem at large. Through collaboration and mutual respect, WordPress can continue to thrive as the platform of choice for millions of users, ensuring that open source innovation remains at the heart of its success. Chapter 7. The Gutenberg Revolution. Ambition or Overreach? In December 2018, WordPress introduced version 5.0, marking the debut of the highly anticipated Gutenberg block editor. Billed as the future of content creation on the platform, Gutenberg was designed to revolutionize how users build websites, replacing the classic editor with a block-based system. This move aimed to modernize WordPress in the face of competition from platforms like Wix and Squarespace, which offered intuitive, drag-and-drop site-building experiences. However, from my perspective, the rollout of Gutenberg was far from smooth. It sparked controversy, exposed divides within the WordPress community, and raised questions about how leadership decisions balanced user feedback. A bold vision. Matt Mullenweg, co-founder of WordPress and CEO of Automattic, envisioned Gutenberg as more than just an editor within WordPress. He saw it as a foundational technology that could extend beyond the platform, potentially influencing other applications and systems. Publicly, Mullenweg expressed that Gutenberg would serve as a framework not just for WordPress, but for the broader web. While this ambition was clear, it raised concerns for many in the community, myself included. It seemed as though WordPress users were being asked to test a tool that had a larger scope than just improving their content creation experience. This grand vision seemed to clash with the immediate needs of WordPress users, many of whom relied on the classic editor or had invested in third-party page builders. The sudden introduction of a block-based editing system created tension as developers, agencies, and site owners were forced to quickly adapt to a new way of working. For me and many in the professional community I work with, Gutenberg didn't feel like a natural progression. Despite its potential, few people I know were willing to exclusively rely on blocks for building complex websites. Mixed adoption among agencies. Several years after its release, Gutenberg's adoption has been uneven, particularly among professional web developers and agencies. Many agencies continue to avoid the block editor, opting instead for third-party page builders like Elementor or sticking with the classic editor, which remains available through a popular plugin. These alternative tools often provide more flexibility and a familiar workflow, something Gutenberg struggled to replicate in its early years. The continued popularity of the classic editor plugin, with millions of active installations, reflects this reluctance. Despite Gutenberg's improvements over time, the professional community remains hesitant to fully adopt blocks. In my own experience working with developers and agencies, I haven't encountered many who use blocks exclusively. The editor's block-based approach, while innovative, introduced challenges that some developers found cumbersome, especially when integrating custom functionality or working on larger projects. The rollout and community feedback. Despite the mixed reception, Gutenberg was bundled into WordPress 5.0 as the default editor, leaving users with limited options. Adopt the new system, install the classic editor plugin, or switch to a third-party page builder. For many, this felt like a forced transition. Surveys conducted before and after the release indicated that a significant percentage of users were dissatisfied with Gutenberg at launch, citing concerns over compatibility, usability, and readiness for production environments. Rather than offering Gutenberg as an optional feature for an extended testing period, its integration into WordPress core was viewed by some as a heavy-handed move. While Gutenberg was available as a plugin for testing before its official release, its inclusion in the core software seemed premature to many users. This decision appeared to contradict WordPress's open-source ethos, which values community feedback and gradual, user-driven evolution. The rushed adoption led to frustrations within parts of the community, as many felt that their concerns had been overlooked. WordCamp 2024, a block-centric narrative. At WordCamp 2024, the block editor took center stage. Almost all speakers at the event praised blocks and discussed their potential for the future of WordPress. While this reflected the enthusiasm from a specific segment of the WordPress community, it didn't resonate with my own experience. The developers and agencies I know still largely prefer the classic editor or third-party solutions, and few are using blocks exclusively. This disconnect between WordCamp's messaging and the real-world adoption of Gutenberg left me feeling that the leadership's vision was increasingly diverging from the needs and preferences of many in the community. The continued emphasis on blocks seemed more like a top-down push rather than a reflection of what users were actually choosing to implement in their projects. Mullenweg's classic editor comment. One moment from WordCamp 2024 that particularly stood out was a question about the classic editor plugin's end-of-life EOL date. Users were concerned about whether support for the plugin would be discontinued, as many still relied on it. The question was straightforward. Can you please clear up what's happening with the classic editor plugin EOL date so people aren't being taken advantage of? Mullenweg's response was telling. Yeah, huh? I don't want to defend the classic editor. Maybe they just should upgrade to blocks. To me, this response encapsulated the ongoing tension between leadership and the broader community. Instead of addressing users' concerns or offering a clear roadmap for the classic editor's future, Mullenweg appeared to dismiss the importance of maintaining a tool that millions of WordPress users still relied on. It felt like another nudge to push users toward blocks, regardless of their actual preferences or needs. Balancing innovation with user needs. Gutenberg represents a critical moment in WordPress's evolution, where the balance between innovation and user satisfaction is in flux. WordPress must evolve to remain competitive in a fast-changing digital landscape, but this evolution shouldn't come at the expense of the values that have long defined the platform. For me, Gutenberg's rollout, the continued emphasis on blocks at WordCamp, and Mullenweg's remarks about the classic editor underscore a shift in priorities that seem to favor corporate ambitions over community-driven development. The block editor, while powerful, has yet to gain the widespread organic adoption its creators envision. Instead, it has become a point of frustration for many, particularly those who feel that their voices aren't being heard. Moving forward, lessons in leadership and collaboration. The Gutenberg experiment has yielded valuable lessons for the future of WordPress. First and foremost, it highlights the need for greater transparency and inclusivity in decision-making processes. Leadership in an open-source project shouldn't ignore the voices of its community, especially when introducing changes that impact millions of users. Second, the experience underscores the importance of balancing innovation with user needs. While WordPress must continue to evolve, it must do so in a way that doesn't alienate its core user base. The introduction of features like Gutenberg should be guided by the same open-source principles that have always defined WordPress: collaboration, choice, and community-driven development. Finally, the future of Gutenberg, and by extension, WordPress, will depend on how well Automattic and Mullenweg can bridge the gap between leadership vision and community consensus. Without a concerted effort to rebuild trust and listen to feedback, WordPress risks losing the very users who have built it into the dominant platform it is today. By learning from the missteps of Gutenberg's rollout and embracing a more inclusive approach, WordPress can continue to evolve while staying true to the values that have guided it from the beginning. The path forward must involve not just innovation, but also a renewed commitment to collaboration and community. Chapter 8, Expanding Control, the acquisitions of WooCommerce and Tumblr, 2015 to 2019. Between 2015 and 2019, Automattic made two significant acquisitions that reshaped the company's trajectory and raised questions within the WordPress community. By purchasing WooCommerce in 2015 and Tumblr in 2019, Automattic expanded its reach beyond WordPress publishing, signaling a shift toward a multifaceted digital corporation. For some, these moves reflected a natural progression, while for others they represented a growing tension between open-source ideals and corporate interests. WooCommerce, a double-edged sword for e-commerce. When Automattic acquired WooCommerce in May 2015, it took over the leading e-commerce solution for WordPress sites. WooCommerce's accessibility and ease of use allowed businesses of all sizes to set up online stores with minimal technical overhead. Its open-source foundation and thriving developer community made it a key component of the WordPress ecosystem. The acquisition was positioned as a step toward democratizing commerce, much like WordPress had democratized publishing. However, over time, I've observed a shift. While WooCommerce remains free at its core, building a fully functional online store often requires several premium extensions and specialized hosting, many of which are offered by Automattic. Hosting costs range from $120 to $5,000 annually, depending on performance needs, while extensions like advanced shipping, payment gateways, and security tools can add hundreds more to the yearly budget. What was once an accessible tool for small businesses now feels more commercialized, with costs approaching those of fully hosted solutions. Furthermore, WordPress VIP, another service by Automattic, offers enterprise-level hosting starting around $2,000 per month. This price point reflects a move towards servicing large-scale businesses and corporate clients, leaving smaller users feeling like their needs may be secondary. Tumblr, a social media experiment with new controversies. In 2019, Automattic acquired Tumblr, a once thriving social media platform. Known for its creative user base and user-generated content, Tumblr had lost traction after a controversial content policy change in 2018. For Automattic, the acquisition represented an opportunity to revitalize the platform and integrate it with WordPress's publishing tools. However, questions arose about how Tumblr's freeform culture would coexist with WordPress's structured environment. Recently, concerns have emerged regarding Tumblr's potential use of public user data to train artificial intelligence models, possibly involving companies like OpenAI and Midjourney. This development has sparked backlash from users concerned about privacy and consent, raising questions about Automattic's handling of user data and its alignment with open-source values. Corporate growth versus open-source values. These acquisitions marked a turning point for Automattic, raising important questions about its direction. Automattic's growth, while impressive, has at times created tension within the WordPress community. WooCommerce's increasing monetization, combined with the enterprise-level services offered through WordPress VIP, reflects a shift towards serving larger businesses and corporate clients. For many small businesses and independent developers, this feels at odds with WordPress's mission to democratize publishing and commerce for all. Similarly, the controversies surrounding Tumblr's handling of user data reflect broader concerns about the company's commitment to open-source principles. The potential use of user data for AI training raises ethical questions and highlights the risks of prioritizing corporate interests over community values. The centralization of power. With its control over key platforms like WooCommerce and Tumblr, Automattic now holds considerable influence within the WordPress ecosystem. This centralization, while beneficial for coordinated development, raises concerns about the erosion of the decentralized, community-driven nature of WordPress. As Automattic grows, smaller developers and independent businesses may find it harder to compete, further consolidating control within a single entity. Charting the future. The acquisitions of WooCommerce and Tumblr, coupled with recent controversies surrounding user data, represent a crossroads for Automattic and WordPress. As the company continues to expand, it must find a balance between growth and maintaining the open-source values that have defined WordPress's success. By prioritizing transparency, decentralization, and community involvement, Automattic can continue to honor the legacy of WordPress while navigating its corporate ambitions. Chapter 9. Shifting Priorities, the Acquisition of Pocket Casts. In July 2021, Automattic acquired Pocket Casts, a popular podcasting app known for its sleek design and powerful features like cross-device syncing. At a time when podcasts were surging in popularity, this move seemed to reflect Automattic's growing interest in expanding beyond WordPress's core mission of democratizing web publishing. Pocket Casts, a proprietary app, operates in a different space than WordPress, raising questions about Automattic's direction. While the acquisition could be seen as a diversification strategy, I couldn't help but wonder how it aligned with the company's commitment to open-source principles. Automattic positioned the acquisition as a natural extension of its goal to make the web a better place. But to me, it seemed to represent a shift toward broader commercial ventures, potentially diluting the focus on WordPress. Diversification beyond WordPress. Automattic's acquisition of Pocket Casts followed its previous purchases of platforms like Tumblr. While diversification can offer new opportunities, it also signaled to me a growing focus on building a portfolio of digital products rather than staying rooted in WordPress's community-driven framework. Pocket Casts operates as a proprietary service without the collaborative open-source foundation that defines WordPress. This seemed to depart from the values that helped shape WordPress into the platform it is today. Concerns over open-source focus. Pocket Casts' proprietary nature made me question whether Automattic was straying from its original vision. WordPress is built on collaboration, transparency, and community contributions, all principles that Pocket Casts doesn't inherently follow as a closed-source app. While Automattic assured the community that this acquisition would benefit the ecosystem, I was left wondering if this was a sign that resources were being funneled into corporate expansion rather than enhancing the open-source foundation of WordPress. Corporate ambitions versus community values. For a long time, WordPress has relied on its open-source community to thrive, with unpaid contributors working on features, security, and extensions. But with Pocket Casts, I began to wonder if Automattic's attention was shifting toward corporate interests. The acquisitions of tools like Pocket Casts raised questions about whether Automattic's corporate growth strategy was taking precedence over the collaborative spirit that has always been central to WordPress's success. While Pocket Casts could enhance WordPress's multimedia capabilities, its lack of immediate integration and proprietary nature left room for skepticism. Was Automattic expanding in ways that supported WordPress's user base? Or simply making strategic business moves without clear community benefits? The need for transparency. The acquisition of Pocket Casts underscored the importance of transparency and a clear integration strategy. Automattic has a responsibility to clarify how these new ventures align with its broader vision for WordPress. Without transparency, there's a risk of alienating the community that helped build WordPress. Podcasting offers potential for content creators, but without a cohesive strategy to integrate these tools, it seems Automattic may be prioritizing its corporate ambitions over serving its core community. Reflecting on the future. Automattic's acquisition of Pocket Casts reflects its ambition to expand its digital portfolio, but it also raises questions about the company's long-term vision. As Automattic grows, I believe the challenge will be in ensuring that this growth doesn't come at the expense of its open-source roots. While evolving with the digital landscape is crucial, staying true to the principles that have defined WordPress will be equally important. By fostering open dialogue and demonstrating a clear strategy, Automattic can bridge the gap between its corporate interests and the community's needs. However, the concerns surrounding Pocket Casts are part of a broader conversation about the balance between growth and maintaining WordPress's identity as an open platform. Chapter 10, The Openverse Illusion, 2021. In 2021, WordPress introduced Openverse, a platform that expanded access to Creative Commons licensed images and media. While its launch was met with enthusiasm, Openverse originated from Automattic's acquisition of the Creative Commons Search project. Rebranded and integrated into the WordPress ecosystem, it provided users seamless access to open media. While technically open source, Openverse is largely directed by Automattic employees, which raises questions about governance and how much influence the broader community truly has. This reflects a trend within Automattic, growing control over WordPress components. Openverse, a corporate acquisition with open source branding. While Openverse brings undeniable value, its development was not a grassroots initiative. It came from an acquisition, not a community-led project, raising concerns about ownership and influence. Though contributions are welcome from the community, the strategic direction remains largely controlled by Automattic, which blurs the lines between open source ideals and corporate interests. Automattic's growing influence. By integrating Openverse into its platforms, particularly WordPress.com, Automattic strengthens its position in the WordPress ecosystem. While this enhances the user experience, it also centralizes control, further embedding Automattic's influence in hosting, themes, and plugins. This consolidation appears to counter the decentralized nature that defines open source projects. Questioning the community-led narrative. While Matt Mullenweg and Automattic emphasize their commitment to open source values, initiatives like Openverse reveal a more complex picture. The project, while open source, is managed with minimal involvement from the broader community, challenging the notion of collaborative governance. Automattic's dominant role in such projects raises concerns about the authenticity of community-driven initiatives. A broader issue of centralization. Openverse is part of a larger issue within the WordPress ecosystem. Automattic's increasing influence. The growing control over various components, media, plugins, themes, and hosting, highlights a shift toward consolidation that may undermine the open source community's decentralized spirit. The potential risk is that Automattic's commercial interests may overshadow community-driven development. The illusion of openness. Despite being branded as open source, Openverse's governance remains primarily in Automattic's hands. This centralization challenges the open source ideal of a level playing field where all contributors have an equal say. While Openverse offers clear benefits, it also represents a tension between Automattic's corporate ambitions and the community values of open source collaboration. Preserving the spirit of open source. As WordPress continues to evolve, the community must remain vigilant about how corporate involvement impacts the platform's open source integrity. Projects like Openverse reveal the need for greater transparency, inclusivity, and decentralized governance. Holding Automattic accountable and advocating for equitable participation in decision-making will be crucial for preserving the collaborative ethos that made WordPress a success. Chapter 11, Allegations of Abuse of Power Shake WordPress, 2024. In September 2024, the WordPress community was rattled by an incident that raised serious concerns about the future of leadership and fairness within the open source movement. The controversy unfolded at WordCamp US, where Matt Mullenweg, WordPress co-founder and CEO of Automattic, used his keynote platform to deliver a scathing public attack on WP Engine, a major player in the WordPress hosting space. The incident, which could have been a moment to celebrate community collaboration, instead highlighted deep divisions, raising questions about whether the open source project was still being governed with the fairness and inclusivity that made it great. A public attack on WP Engine. During his keynote, Mullenweg called out Silver Lake Capital's managing director, WP Engine's primary investor, displaying the executive's face and contact information on the big screen for the entire audience to see. He urged attendees to vote with their wallets, suggesting they switch from WP Engine to another hosting provider. He claimed that WP Engine was exploiting WordPress without contributing adequately in return, emphasizing that the company only committed 40 hours per week to the Five for the Future initiative, compared to Automattic's nearly 4,000 hours. For many in the audience, this felt less like a critique of WP Engine's contributions and more like a calculated move to publicly humiliate a competitor. WP Engine, which had contributed $75,000 in sponsorship to the event, found itself the target of a very public attack. Attendees were left visibly uncomfortable, as what should have been a keynote focused on community values turned into a moment of corporate shaming. The decision to single out WP Engine and its investors in this way raised red flags about Mullenweg's use of his platform to shape the narrative around competition and contributions to WordPress. Do contributions count? The ACF and local debate. A significant part of Mullenweg's critique centered on contributions, or more accurately, the perceived lack thereof from WP Engine. But this argument raised an important question. What qualifies as a contribution? WP Engine owns Advanced Custom Fields, ACF, one of the most widely adopted free plugins in the WordPress ecosystem, and Local, a development environment used by countless WordPress developers. Both of these tools, in their free forms, are critical parts of the workflow for thousands of developers. Shouldn't the mass adoption of these free variants count as meaningful contributions to the community? Mullenweg's attack left me, and many others, asking, who decides what counts as a contribution? Is it the company's hours pledged toward core development? Or does the creation and maintenance of widely used free tools like ACF and Local qualify? In an ecosystem as diverse as WordPress, where contributions come in many forms, from code to community building to plugin development, it's unclear how these contributions are counted and who gets to define their value. Personally, I've started to wonder if not contributing enough to the right initiatives could result in public shaming in front of my peers. Just as WP Engine was singled out, the fear of being publicly criticized, especially in such a prominent setting, could discourage companies and individuals from participating at all. Where do we draw the line? And how do we ensure that contributions of all kinds are recognized and valued in a way that aligns with WordPress's open source ethos? The WP Engine ban from WordPress.org. Shortly after the controversy at WordCamp, WP Engine was banned from accessing WordPress.org, cutting off its users from essential themes and plugins hosted on the platform. The reason cited was WP Engine's practice of disabling core WordPress features, such as post revisions, to save on server costs. Mullenweg claimed that these changes violated the integrity of WordPress, but the decision to block millions of WP Engine users from the repository felt like an excessive punishment to many. Innocent users, who may not have been aware of the conflict, found themselves caught in the crossfire of a dispute between two companies. For me, this raised further ethical concerns about how the WordPress project is governed. It was hard not to see this ban as a continuation of the attack against WP Engine, especially given the fact that Automattic owns WordPress VIP, a hosting platform that competes directly with WP Engine. This conflict of interest cast a shadow over the entire affair, as it became unclear whether the decisions being made were in the best interests of the WordPress community, or whether they were serving Automattic's commercial interests. The growing conflict of interest. Mullenweg's dual roles as the public face of WordPress and CEO of Automattic have always created a certain level of tension. However, the events of 2024 brought this conflict of interest to the forefront in a way that couldn't be ignored. On one hand, Mullenweg is responsible for the stewardship of WordPress, an open-source project that thrives on contributions from the global community. On the other hand, he leads Automattic, a company that directly benefits from the success of WordPress and competes with other companies in the ecosystem, such as WP Engine. This dual role raises an uncomfortable question. Should the leader of a for-profit company have the power to make decisions that affect other companies within the same ecosystem? Mullenweg's public shaming of WP Engine, followed by the ban from WordPress.org, makes it difficult to separate his role as a community leader from his business interests. The conflict of interest is undeniable, and for many in the WordPress community, this incident has called into question whether Mullenweg should continue to hold both positions. A divided community. The fallout from WordCamp US left the WordPress community deeply divided. Some supported Mullenweg's call for greater corporate responsibility, arguing that companies profiting from WordPress should contribute more to its development. But others, like myself, felt that the public nature of the criticism and the subsequent ban of WP Engine crossed a line. Open source projects are supposed to be inclusive, allowing for a diversity of contributions. Setting contribution quotas and punishing companies that don't meet them seems to undermine the very principles that WordPress was built on. The future of WordPress leadership. As the dust settles, it's becoming clear that WordPress needs to grapple with serious governance issues if it is to remain true to its open source roots. The events of September 2024 exposed cracks in the leadership structure of WordPress, where the lines between community leadership and corporate competition are becoming increasingly blurred. The community must now ask itself whether the current structure, where one individual holds so much power, can continue to serve the diverse needs of WordPress users. If WordPress is to remain the open, community-driven project it has always been, we may need to reconsider how leadership decisions are made and whether it's time for new governance structures that limit the influence of any one company or individual. Conclusion: standing up for open source values. The controversy surrounding WP Engine's public criticism and ban has left many in the WordPress community reflecting on the nature of open source software and the ethos that has defined the platform for nearly 2 decades. In 2024, as we watch the values of inclusivity, collaboration, and decentralization come under strain, it's critical to remember that WordPress is much more than software. It's a global movement rooted in the belief that technology should empower everyone. The recent actions of WordPress leadership, however, challenge that very foundation. Now more than ever, we must stand up for the principles that have made WordPress not just popular, but a beacon of open source success. Open source in the GPL, freedom for all, not just for some. At the heart of WordPress's success lies the GNU General Public License, GPL, which governs the software's use, distribution, and modification. The GPL is not merely a legal document, it's a philosophical stance that guarantees freedoms to every user of WordPress. These freedoms include the right to run, study, share, and modify the software. In the words of the GPL itself, the licenses for most software are designed to take away your freedom to share and change it. By contrast, the GNU General Public License is intended to guarantee your freedom to share and change all versions of a program, to make sure it remains free software for all its users. The key word here is all. The GPL does not discriminate based on whether or not you contribute back to the project. It doesn't matter whether you are an individual hobbyist, a large corporation, or something in between. You are free to use WordPress. The idea that WP Engine or any company could be targeted or shamed for using too much without giving enough back directly contradicts the spirit of this license. This is why the public criticism of WP Engine and their subsequent ban from WordPress.org feels like an affront to the open source ethos. Under the GPL, no one gets to decide who is allowed to use WordPress based on arbitrary contribution metrics. WP Engine, like every other user, has the right to use WordPress without being held to some undefined standard of enough contribution. What qualifies as a contribution? As this controversy has unfolded, the question of what counts as a contribution has surfaced repeatedly. WP Engine owns advanced custom fields, ACF, and local, both of which are invaluable free tools used by thousands of WordPress developers. The free versions of these tools have had a transformative impact on how people build and maintain websites within the WordPress ecosystem. Yet during his public criticism, Matt Mullenweg focused solely on hours pledged to the Five for the Future initiative. This raises important questions. Who counts contributions, and what qualifies as a contribution? Is it only the hours spent writing code for core WordPress development? Or do tools like ACF and Local, which enhance the experience for countless users, count too? Contributions to open source software come in many forms, and to reduce the definition to just hours logged under an initiative feels restrictive and dismissive of the broader ecosystem of support. If we narrow our definition of what counts as contributing, we risk alienating companies, developers, and users who play an integral role in making WordPress what it is. Open source, by its very nature, is about freedom and inclusivity, about making the world better, not policing who gets to be part of that process. Moving beyond public shaming, what has perhaps troubled me the most about the events of 2024 is the public nature of the criticism. The use of a WordCamp keynote, a platform meant to bring the community together, as a venue to publicly shame WP Engine is not only deeply uncomfortable, but also unnecessary. The message was clear. If you don't contribute in the way WordPress leadership expects, you could be next. And that is a dangerous precedent to set. As someone who has spent years contributing to the WordPress project, these events have left me uneasy. I've always believed in the power of WordPress to democratize publishing, and I continue to believe that it is one of the most transformative platforms out there. I still recommend WordPress to clients and colleagues, and I remain committed to contributing where I can. But the fear of being called out or shamed for not contributing enough is real, and I worry that it may discourage others from getting involved. WP Engine's role in the future of WordPress? Despite the events of 2024, I still hope that WP Engine will return to WordCamp in 2025 as a sponsor and an active participant. The company has played a significant role in the WordPress ecosystem, providing reliable hosting for countless websites and contributing important tools like ACF and Local. The thought of WP Engine being absent from future WordCamps saddens me because in many ways they represent the diversity and strength of the WordPress community. Honestly, it hurts me to say it, but if I had to choose between WP Engine and Matt Mullenweg attending WordCamp in 2025, I would rather see WP Engine. For all its faults, WP Engine has contributed significantly to the ecosystem in ways that directly benefit users every day. And while I appreciate the leadership Mullenweg has shown over the years, the events of this year have made it clear that WordPress is bigger than any one person, no matter how integral they have been to its success, reaffirming our commitment to open source. As we look to the future, it's crucial to reaffirm our commitment to the core values of open source. WordPress has always thrived because of its open, collaborative nature. We must protect that spirit by ensuring that no one is excluded or shamed for how they choose to contribute, or even if they don't contribute at all. The GPL ensures that WordPress remains free for everyone, not just those who contribute the most hours, but also those who use the software to build their businesses, share their ideas, and create meaningful work. The open source community, including WordPress, is built on a foundation of trust and collaboration. We trust that people will contribute where and how they can, but we do not mandate it. We collaborate because we believe that together we can build something greater than what any of us could do alone. That's what makes WordPress powerful, and that's what we must protect. Let's continue to support each other in the ways that matter most, whether that's through code contributions, building tools like ACF and Local, or simply using WordPress to power the next great idea. The future of WordPress depends on our ability to stay true to these values and to ensure that no one is left behind, whether they contribute one line of code or none at all. In the end, WordPress is for everyone, and that's a principle worth defending.